Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Java and the Librarians. This is Ericka, and we're going to be talking about Truthwitch today.
Hey guys, this is Lauren. This might be a short job in the librarians. I know we say that a lot, but I mean, granted, considering we've had hour-long ones, it's I legitimately mean this might be a short one. In part because, we're tired, we're hungry today, it's hot. I've got my hand wrapped up because of just stupid stuff. And in addition to all of that, neither of us finished the book this time.
I know it was. Uh, this book was probably not the best fantasy book I have read. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna give you a
It
synopsis
was
about
bad.
it if you haven't read it. On a continent ruled by three empires, everyone is born with a witchery, a magical skill that sets them apart from others. Now, as the 20-year truce in a centuries long war is about to end, the balance of power and the failing health of all magic will fall on the shoulders of a mythical pair called the Car Arwen. I know I butchered that. The biggest thing on Sapphire and Isolde's mind is saving money for their planned future in the Hundred Isles. Isolde, a thread witch, can see the emotional threads binding the world. Sapphire, on the other hand, is a truth witch. She always knows when a person is telling a lie. A powerful magic like that is something people will kill to have on their side or to keep off their enemy's side. And so Sapphire cannot even admit what she truly is. With the help of the cunning Prince Merrick, a wind witch and a ship's captain, and the hindrance of a blood witch bent on revenge, the friends must rise above their doubts and fight to learn who they are and what they are made of if they are going to stay alive and preserve the balance of the world. It sounds like it's a good book. Like when I read it, I was
On
like, "This
paper,
is a
it
nice."
sounds like fantastic.
This sounds like it got a lot going on. It's like a nice little fantasy book that you just sit down and you have your beverage with. But
And then you read it and you're like, I just want my beverage.
yeah, cause this I got farther than you though. I got up to 30 something, almost 40%.
Yeah, I don't think I cracked 50 pages in it. And I mean, I started to read it, and there's this book club at the main branch of our library, where it's basically bring your own book in adults SSR. And I keep getting told that that's not what it is, but it's how I wrap my head around this group. And so I typically go up to this group and read our book. Like they give us 2 hours, and I can get through most, if not all, of the book in that time. And I was sitting there struggling with this book. It's not a hard read, but I'm struggling because I can't connect with anything. And I mean, I finally just go, I can't do it. Like nobody else is talking, and what comes out of my mouth is, I can't do this. And they're like, what? And I go, I can't read this book. I said there are parts in this book that I've read in every other fantasy book we've read here for Job in the Libraries. Just parts. Um, this idea of let's run away. Every goddamn book has that. Like let's run away. Love triangle, you say? Okay, that's what. Not the School of Good and Evil, that had the running away. Throne of Glass had the love triangle. Ember in the Ashes kind of sort of had a love triangle thing going on. I mean, it's
Yeah, a lot of the books that we read last year, the fantasy one, it had some of the same elements. And like I said, I got through 30% of the story, and there wasn't there wasn't anything. It's like from the moment you read it, that was that little beginner when you first reading it, it's still the same 30% later on. And I feel like, I mean, you're not gonna have such a big jump from the beginning to 30%, but still something should be engaging you to want to continue to read it.
like something needed to have clicked by then.
And it didn't. It was still them trying to find themselves and get the story still building, and it wasn't doing it. And then at the same time, I've said it's a lot. Fantasy, I love to read it. And this is a high fantasy in my opinion in YA, but I've read other type of YA high fantasy stuff like Throne of Glass, and I was able to catch on to that a whole lot more than this one. And it could have just been the writing itself. And I feel like this is more of a character driven because it's just so many characters in here, and the plot isn't really going anywhere.
Yeah, and here's the thing. So like in that book club that I mentioned, as I'm reading, I ended up on my phone taking not necessarily notes, but there's a point where I'm sitting there and as I'm thinking, I'm going through literally every, like going on my Goodreads to look at every single fantasy book that we've read over the past year and a half to be, I mean, just to be able to like remember what it was about and to reference it here. Like, since I mentioned it, well, since you mentioned it, Throne of Glass. The cool thing to me about that, like it had a love triangle, but it kind of had it did it well. You basically had the girl in the center and these two guys that are best friends that are kind of sort of fighting over her, but not actually fighting over her, and it kind of made an interesting tension for everything. Not to mention you had fantasy mixed with action that plus a really kick-ass female lead, which is great. Like I love seeing women in these roles of just being basically the boss bitches. And yeah, I mean, and plus she's an assassin. When do you ever like have a lead female character anymore? Like ever really be an assassin? Like sometimes they pop up and they're like a side character, and it's like, look at our token female that happens to randomly be this. But they had her like front and center. Ember in the Ashes had a love triangle, kind of, sort of, but this time it was the guy that was in the center. And that was a love triangle, but it wasn't fully a love triangle. It was more like a love line because there were such different like dynamics that you didn't necessarily see the two females in any of, and so that created an interesting dynamic with it. But you've got with that one, you've got a nice mix of like legitimate romance in there mixed with action and fantasy. So that kind of was cool about it. Um, yeah.
And even like the different, because there was in that one they had different clans of people. People belonged to different um areas, and we were able to catch on to those. We were able to, oh, this person belongs here and this and all the vocabulary with it. And that's how this one is. Like you have the Truth Witch, you have the Thread Witch. I didn't really understand how the threads work in that. And then you have your antagonist, which is the Blood Witch. And then you have the Void Witch. It was so many this witch in here. And I was trying to put who belongs where and stuff, and I just couldn't get it to
And
fit
here's the
right.
thing, not that I necessarily agree with clannishness or not to sound awful. I don't like I like diversity, but I don't necessarily like the idea of thems versus us, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In books, I mean, it's a lot of times it's necessary as a driving force in a book, but it almost felt like Truthwitch in doing it had a bunch of thems, and there's
Us.
yeah, there's no us, and huh, and it's just like it felt more like you're trying to create groups rather than developing like a culture and drive the story forward and make them have an impact on it. Where
Like
you
the
know,
Thread Witches, they were, I don't remember what they were called, like their clip, but they were together. I think that's farther than what you read because Isolde went back to her village, and they were all together. They tried to do this whole ritual thing, and it was another the guy that was, I think, the leader of him. He was, I believe, the kind of witch that could basically make the Thread Witches get rid of their powers or something like that. But he held power within them, and it seemed like everybody was against everybody in this story.
yeah, and From what I've read of the story, I don't like that. Like, I don't like that idea because it's almost like, you know what? Now you're hitting a point where you realize that there needs to be tension and there needs to be something happening. And doing it that way almost feels like you realize this and now you're trying to make something happen.
Yeah. And I feel like the only part when I was reading and it got kind of like interesting was when the Blood Witch recognized them, and if that fight brought out, and that little smirk that he did, like I got you kind of smirk, and I was like, oh, okay, now it's about to, because he can sniff them out basically by smelling the magic in their blood, and then it stopped and it went on to something else and something else. And another thing that I really didn't like about the story is that the first, you maybe read like a first couple of pages maybe about one character, and then the next paragraph is about another character, and then it's the same another character. It's like it wasn't consistent for me. I feel like when you do it like that, for me, have it in different chapters. The way you want to have different characters, have different narratives in there. One chapter about this person, another chapter about this one. Or if you want it to be all in the same, you can have it like that, but have enough information, or let one character get enough, and then you go to the next one instead of every 2 pages or every
Or
couple
maybe
pages.
have it be perceptional rather than
Yeah,
like do something where you're bringing something new.
yeah. And I was like getting confused on that part. Because I'm still thinking, like, it was one part I had to go back and read because I'm thinking that I'm still reading about Wayne character, and it was about another character. So
Yeah, here's the thing. It just wasn't a good book. She was not good at writing this. And here's the key. To me, here's part of the probably the funniest bit of the whole thing. So I'm on Goodreads today doing something, and all of a sudden I get this email from Goodreads saying, Susan Dennard recommended you read this book. And it's this email, and I'm like, no thanks. No,
and it
no,
got
no.
really good ratings on Goodreads. It's got a lot of good ones. I think it was over 4 stars, and some people that I follow gave it 5 stars, and some other ones DNF'd it or didn't give it. I think I may get like 2 or 3 stars. And it was just, for me, it was just so wordy, and there was nothing going on, and I don't like it when it's.
See, I don't mind wordy if you're giving good information or, some, I want to think of how to word this. I don't mind wordy if you're saying giving pertinent information or if it's driving the story or she almost felt wordy to the point of you're not seeing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, I can see that. And I do understand, like, when you're writing a fantasy novel, you have to take that time to build your world, or get the character to see, not the character, the reader to see what you're trying to build in that sense. But like I said, from the first page to 30% or 50, however far I got, there should have been something that kind of like pull you in and then slowly drag you back out. And then,
Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah,
And I mean, I think that's what, say, Ember in the Ashes was. Like, it's this cool, this weird deserty thing. That's how I kept imagining it. And Throne of Glass, like, you could see these areas, like what they're doing. You could see it in your mind, what they're describing. And heck, even the Crown's game it was a good mix of historical fiction with fantasy because, they're in Russia. So you already understand the concept of Russia, especially um, Tsarist Russia. Like we know that concept, so you didn't necessarily have to world build. You had to build your idea of witchcraft into an existing thing, into
yeah,
an existing culture, and make it work. And that author did. Like I said, mixed all this stuff with magical realism and made it work. And Susan Dennard did not. You're not sitting there and seeing, you know, the woods or the desert or Russia. You're
You're
like
all over the Yeah, you're all over the place with it. You're not seeing it's like my imagination just like, "Oh, we're here. Oh, no, now we're here. Oh, okay, we're here now."
mine was black. Like all I saw was this black empty space. Not like, hey, we're in outer space like say Star Trek and Star Wars. It's just black because like I couldn't imagine where we were or what was going on. I just basically had this black empty space with these characters that kind of sort of came in but almost were fuzzy just because of lack of everything else.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I could vision really good was when um I don't think I'm saying her name right. Sophie, something like that. When she was at the dance or the ball with her uncle and the prince Merrick, and he was there, and they were dancing. I could see that, like that was one of the moments where they kind of got you in and got you out because obviously something is probably may happen between them, and after them, then after she got done dancing with him, uh something got thrown in where it was a big setup and she became actually that was like her little bridal party and she didn't know she was getting married off. And so he was like, there's like a hidden agenda thing going on here too. But after
And
I
you're like,
read
where the
that,
hell
it
did
was,
this come from?
yeah, and I'm like, what's what's going on? You want to know? You can't really even explain it. It just wasn't for me.
It's I don't mind surprises and twists in books. And I think you're the same way where you don't mind this kind of stuff happening, but it's got to be a good twist where, you're sitting there going, "Oh my god, I never would have thought that it would have been the girl that won and that she killed the guy to set him free." Um as opposed to say this book where you're sitting there reading and you think you're following along and then you're like, what? What? No, no, they're not getting married. What does this have to do with anything that just happened or will happen? Or
Yeah. And then like another thing with me, I prefer to read fantasy novels that are mostly written in first person, in third person, because I believe this is written in third person. And I guess first person is more personal. But I can picture the main character more versus when it's just a narrative gone and I don't know. That's just me with the fantasy thing. I feel like I can get into it more when it's written in first person.
I can understand that.
Yep,
I
but
mean, it was
it's
just this. I mean, like I said, I took notes. I even like mentioned in my little note taking thing. I've hit pretty much everything we've read except for Scythe and School of Good and Evil. Scythe was to me more interesting than this book. I wasn't a fan of Scythe because I'd read The Book Thief before that, and I liked how The Book Thief treated death better than I liked how Scythe treated death.
I never
If
read
that
the
makes
book.
sense. The Book Thief is solid. Death is actually the narrator of the entire book. And it's set during World War II, and so he pops in and out. And it's basically as he's kind of accidentally overseeing slash participating in the main character's life. Like it's not planned that he's going to be a. It's not planned that he's going to be there. It's essentially something happens, people die. I mean, it's World War II,
Hmm.
kind of how war works. Especially when you're doing like the Holocaust. But it's not like he goes, "Oh, I'm going to go to St. James Street this week and see how little Tiffany's doing." It's somebody dies and he goes, "Oh my god, I know that girl," type of stuff. And I mean, without like really fangirling. So he ends up telling her story through the course of, the events just because he happens to randomly be there. And I mean, I liked the use of death as the concept that we know it, but adding him as an active participant. Well, I shouldn't say active participant, but adding him as a participant to say life. As in, he comes through and he escorts the dead to their next realm while also remembering and recognizing those of us here. And I mean, as I read the book Thief, like, I'm a clumsy kid. Clumsy, um, ever so slightly, death defying, not on purpose. It's just I do stupid things in my life. I find new and creative ways to have very stupid accidents. Like, I can't even tell you what I did to make my arm like this today. No idea. And now, like, I have muscles that are all inflamed. None. I thought I knew. I thought it was something that happened relating to my car accident, and I now have arthritis. No, nope. Everything's just inflamed. And yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that. And so, like, in reading the book Thief, I'm sitting there going, no, no, no. This is like how I know death. Like, I related to that. In reading Scythe, I'm sitting there going, it's an interesting concept of death. I can appreciate it. I just didn't relate to it, and it didn't sink in with me. And I'm sure there are people out there that loved it.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things where I thought it was interesting. I'm glad I read it. I would not have picked. I don't think I would have picked that up on my own. And actually, after you and I discussed it, I was in the book club, and after you and I discussed it, the person that I ended up in the book club with said, "Hey, are you guys done with that book that you're going to discuss on your YouTube show?" And I go, "Yeah." And I hand it to him. He goes, "Fantastic, I'm going to borrow it." And so this other person borrowed it and read it and loved it and ended up reading the second book in the series because he had seen one of us reading it and we were going to talk about it. So I thought that was just kind of a cool, my lone cool moment with this book. And he goes, "Are you going to read the second book?" I said, "No, I'm not. I don't like the first book enough to go on to the second." I feel like I'm that person in our book club where I'm like, no, I don't. I have all sorts of series that I'm like in the middle of and I'm not finishing. I mean, not like purposely not finishing. It's just I love the books but I keep finding myself starting other series.
Yeah, and you can finish those. Yeah.
Yeah. But like the stuff that we've read in here that are parts of series, there are some that I like actually did go through and read stuff in because I like those books. And then there are other ones where everybody goes, "We're going to read book 2." And I'm like, great.
No, you don't read a lot of the second ones or continue on with the series.
Yeah.
And I have.
Yeah. I mean, but you guys have also, when we've done like the series books, I'm glad that I've read the first one and I've enjoyed it. Like, it's stuff that I probably would not have grabbed on my own. But then I sit there and go, it was a great book and I'm going to recommend it. I know people who would like this. It's just,
No,
I don't feel the need to read the second one after that, though.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us are going to be reading the second book on this series.
No, I'm not. It's just I mean, I know people that would probably like this. I know a lot of teens that come to the library that kind of like this genre and this type, and I'll recommend to them, even though it's like my job. But still, I would recommend it to them. But
I
I
feel like
wouldn't.
this is like that Amish book last month that we read. I know
Yeah.
people that love it and I would recommend it to them, but yeah. I would like to do a quick, since we haven't mentioned it and it's kind of a fantasy book, I would like to at least give a shout out to the School of Good and Evil because it's like the lone fantasy the last year that we haven't mentioned tonight. And I mean, I might actually have to go back and read the second one in that because I was thinking about it today. But it at least like brought something new. Like it kind of reimagined the entire fairy tale genre, if you want to call it the fairy tale genre.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that at least made it cool and interesting. This one did nothing. Like nothing. It didn't rework anything. It didn't feel like it brought anything new. At least even the ones that like one of us hated, we can at least look back and at and go, you tried to something new. Like we respect what you tried there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's just that it just wasn't getting it with this one. And like I said, this is my second DNF, and I like that. You know, I don't want anybody really to force themselves to read a book that they don't
yeah, and I
like,
want to say I think
especially
this
if
is
it's
your second legit DNF because I think you DNF the set of novellas that we read, the Amish novellas, but I don't feel like that's a true DNF because you at least got through a couple of the novellas and could like
yeah,
converse on that because like they're short stories. That's essentially what a novella is, and so you at least knew what was kind of sort of going on with that stuff. And these books, when you're like legitimately DNFing, it's like a solid novel of 340 pages, and you get like 100, and you're like, can we kill me now? Just
yeah. And it's like I was saying, it's just like I mean, if and I hardly like I don't think I've DNF it like it will hardly ever when I would DNF a book. Like I had to really not like it because I would push myself to read it. And this year, one of my goals was to if I don't like it, don't read it. Don't force yourself to read it.
yeah.
And just
And
because
that's how I am. Like I am very much one of those people where I DNF I believe more than I care to admit. Um, but when I'm DNFing, like I very much have hit the point in my life, especially after undergrad, where I was an English major, and I don't think I read too many bad books as an undergrad. I mean, I read some solid stuff, but it was also stuff that was being chosen for me in classes, and I would get through those books because I had to show up to class and either know what I was talking about or BS my way through it well enough to like get out the other end. And trust me, I've done both.
yeah, I have myself.
I've done both in undergraduate level classes, and I've done well enough to get solid B's through A's, like in those English classes. Because I mean, if you can do it well, more
Do
power
it.
to her. I'm not saying do that frequently. It's a skill to hone, at least for reading. But I mean, it's just one of those things where there are there are plenty of bad books in the world. There are plenty of fantastic books, and there's a whole array of things in between. Oh, and don't get me wrong, I've fallen for quite a few bad books. We all have. Like, there's some perfectly awful books out there where you're like, oh, I'm always going to read you. Dr. Seuss's Yertle the Turtle will always be in my heart. It's not one of his best books, but I really like Yertle the Turtle and the Butter War. The Butter War is such a bad Dr. Seuss book, but I love it. And please, guys, if you haven't read the Butter War, just go out and do that because the entire premise of the book is two nations are at war over what side you butter your toast on.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's awful, but I
It
love it.
sounds awful. And like I understand, like the hard work that authors do to
Yeah.
write their stories and it's just like I said, it's just not for everyone.
No, I mean, like I said, we all have these books that we all know that are just bad. Like I said, for me, some of it is just stuff like, the Butterworth, where you sit there, you're like, oh, I know you're not good, but I can't. Like, crap like that. Like, I like The Cat in the Hat. I like The Grinch. Good, solid books. But they're like, Horton. Horton's a great book.
Yeah.
All the Horton books. But there's just something about those like those lower level Dr. Seuss books that even when you read them and nobody else likes them, the Lorax, I like the Lorax a lot. It's not my favorite, but it's up there. Um, I can respect what they did even with the bad books, and there are some that are like that just catch your heart for whatever reason. Then there are the ones that are like this one where I go, you aren't worth my effort.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I respect the effort, but that's about as far as I can go on this. Is I respect that you tried. It wasn't good effort. It's not a good book.
And see, like with me, I'm trying to, write myself, and I take in everything. Please.
Yeah,
All right. But yeah, I take in everything that, that like the criticism that we give to these books, constructive criticism,
yeah,
and like at the same time I apply to like when I'm writing too. Because I want to write, for myself. At the same time, I want to give a reader the same thing that other authors have given to me too. And I want them to be able to connect. And I understand the stories that I write may not be for everyone. I understand it as well. That's why I say I understand the work that maybe the authors put through with their books and stuff. It's just not for everybody. Like I said, this isn't a bad book as far as like the ratings go because it's gotten so many different good ratings on
yeah.
Goodreads.
Like from what I saw on Goodreads, it was a 398, a 3.98. Which I mean, I've seen books on Goodreads with significantly worse ratings. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a fantastic rating. It wasn't over a 4 points. I mean, if you're a book that's getting a 4 point, if 4 stars or higher on Goodreads, I have high expectations for you.
Yeah. I do
Like
too.
real high expectations. Because I'm like, okay, you have 100 ratings of okay, maybe more than 100 ratings. Because 100 ratings of 4 stars. I'm like, did you just find friends to read you? Um, but I mean, I'm like, if you're getting like significantly high ratings, and I mean, had a couple books by friends that I've read on Goodreads where I'm not gonna lie, I read the book because I was friends with the person. And I'm happy that I read that book, but I'm like, look, it's not a genre that I normally read, which is why I gave it 3 stars rather than 4 stars. But I can sit there and go, your shit made me giggle the entire time. Like, and I've done that. Like, there's one of my coworkers at my in my building of our library picked up his book. It was post-apocalyptic type of stuff, all set in Louisville, Kentucky, of all places. And I read it. Like I read this book. I'm not one of those people that just reads post-apocalyptic books. That's not my genre at all. But I know the author, so I'm like, okay, you need to come home with me so I can at least say I read your book. And I freaking giggled cover to cover. Like right at the beginning of the book, he goes, "How did this happen in Louisville? Louisville's not even one of America's major cities." And I'm just like, oh God, just so self-aware. I mean, and it's like stuff that I don't. Sometimes when I read stuff, in the genres that I don't like, I kind of go in expecting not to like it. Because I mean, not to be, it's just if it's not a genre that I read, that's what my expectation is. And so, um, because you don't read that genre just because you don't like it, but then I can still connect with things in it that you're like, okay, I like the self awareness in chapter number 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand it as well because I'm like that too. And there's a lot of one of my coworkers, our Paige. We kind of like the same thing. She's more of a contemporary person, and she tries to get me to read contemporary, but I like a certain kind of temporary. I'm not ashamed to say I like the little raunchy ones. And she likes anything that's sad, depressing, make you cry, like those little heart wrenching contemporary. And I don't like that. I have to be in the mood for to read stuff like that. And
Yeah,
she
I
tries
mean,
to get me to read it.
I still have fond memories of Lorleen McDaniel books, you know, because I clearly grew up in 1998. But it's very much of like whenever I feel like going back to Lorleen McDaniel or that type, I very much have to be in the mood for say something romancy or in the mood to cry.
Yeah. And that's what I was, telling her, but I read it just because she's my friend and she recommended it, and it's just not for me. It's just not for me.
Well, and here's the funny thing. I recently had one of those moments where Claire, actually a friend of mine at work, looked at me and she goes, I want to recommend you books. I just can't because I haven't figured out what you read yet. And I'm like, toss a book my way. I'll at least give it a try.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's kind of is how I am with people, though. I'm like, even if you're my friend, if I don't know what you read, or if I haven't quite figured it out, I'm not going to sit there and recommend a book to you. Like, there's this one person that I work with who has gone nuts over graphic novels. Don't know why. Like, they're not really my thing. I understand the draw. Like, I get it. They're not my thing. And then she sits there every single time. Have you read this graphic? No, I haven't read that graphic novel. We've
Yeah.
had this conversation before. You know I don't read graphic novels. But then the funny thing is, another coworker who is really into graphic novels and comics and knows that I don't read them, every so often goes, hey, you like classic books, right? And I said, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, hey, so I found this graphic novel retelling of The Wizard of Oz if you'd like to read it. I'm like, okay. And I mean, usually that's like, and the few graphic novels I've read this year have been like that kind of stuff. Like I recently went through, after I DNF'd this book after like 40 pages, 30 pages, whatever it was, I was still in this book club and I'm like, I'm going to grab a new book for myself and randomly found a graphic novel retelling of several Edgar Allan Poe's books.
Oh yeah, a lot of those.
And I'm like, okay, because like I like Poe, but Poe is very much a visual writer as well. Like his descriptions are fantastic. And I'm sitting there, I'm going through this. I recommended that book to like 5 people.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
love.
you need to read this.
He's like one of my favorite authors to read.
Yeah, there's just something great about Poe.
I love the Telltale Heart.
I actually read that in graphic novel form now.
It
My
is.
favorite.
It's like it's so dark and
It
weird, but
is.
it's so
It's such a
good.
bizarre story.
It's just I love how his mind was so tormented to the point where he just gave himself
He
away,
just
and
loses it.
the police are like, "What's going on
Well,
with
you did it.
And I love that. There's actually a Netflix TV, or I think it's like well, it's a movie, but it's got different shorts, and I forgot what it's called, but it's got the cast of Amontillado in there. I think
I
the
do
Red
like the
Mask.
cask of Amontillado.
It has the Red Mask in it. It has the House of Usher and another one I can't think of it. It's the one where the sister like it was two friends and one friend was in the mansion, the other one went to go visit him and the sister died and oh
I
crap.
feel like I
It'll
should
come
know
to
this
me.
one.
It'll come to me and I'll just have to text it to you or something.
Okay.
But that one was in there and Death was narrating the story because
I
had a
love
setting
Death as a
of
narrator.
it had a setting as a raven. And so Death and the raven was talking to each other.
Oh my
And
god,
Death
that would
was
be amazing.
it's so good. And I haven't like looked for it. But if it's on there, I'll look for it when we get done with this and I'll text it to you. But it is so good. So good.
So I love, like I said before, I love the cask of Amontillado, and I actually had to read that in freshman English. My school did not have AP classes until the year after I graduated because they were smart like that. I would have been AP English all the way. But so I take the highest every year. I take the highest level of Englishes I could. Very mid-level math. It's great at English though, and I would go in, and I'm one of the few people that loved the lit teachers we had. Both of them. Uh, not I don't think anybody hated the freshman and sophomore lit teacher. His name was Mike Steidel. Fantastic. And both years he had us reading Shakespeare. And he's sitting there like explaining to freshmen all the dirty jokes in Shakespeare. Like, we're reading Romeo and Juliet. He goes, you know why they did that, right, guys? And we're like, no, why? And he goes, this is why people would have been laughing at this. This is what it meant. To the point that I cannot come across the word maidenhead without chuckling. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And Kate, for those of you who do not know, maidenhead was ye old term for virginity. So, yeah, I mean, and they make a couple, and like I find these references in movies that are still out where they go, Maidenhead security, and I'm sitting on at my house going, Maidenhead security, and I'll have family members go, why are you giggling because of this? But yeah, so I mean that he was doing that, but he also had us reading this stuff like the Cask of Amontillado, and it gets to the point where the guy gets bricked into the tomb after being tricked down there, and he goes, "Why do you think he starts laughing at this point?" And I raise my hand, and he goes, "Yes." And I go, "Oh, it's because think about it." I'm like, "Think about it. It's because they're in these walls that are thick enough that you're not going to hear through. In addition to being several feet underground during carnival." I'm like, any one of those would have made it very difficult, if not impossible, to find the person. But he's literally committing the perfect murder right now. And he realizes that he's getting away with it as he hears his friend screaming for his life on the other side. Ninth grade English.
Yeah. we read that I think it was my freshman year.
Yeah, read that in ninth grade English. This is my response in ninth grade English. And he goes, yeah, remind me not to get on your bad side. I'm like, there's a reason my brother tells me I can be a mob enforcer some days. Yep. There's no middle ground. I'm either like super sweet and lovable, or I'm like, I will kill you. Like, actually, I attempt to find that middle ground when I'm out in public or on this show. Because, they're totally going to rewind the tape someday and be like, her. It was the little one. And, I mean, that's just, like, it's so dark. It is great, and I love it. And, granted, I'm also sitting there, like, as we're reading Romeo and Juliet, because who wants to be Paris? I'm like, me! I'll do it! And he goes, okay, we'll have you be Count Paris, the boy.
It was the fall of the House of Usher.
Okay.
Yes. It had the Telltale Heart, the Pit and the Pendulum, the Fall of the House of Usher, the Facts in the Case of M. Valamir, and the Mask of the Red Death. Okay. And Christopher Lee voiced some of the characters in there.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and it's called Extraordinary Tales on Netflix.
Okay, I will have to look that up.
It's good.
Have you ever seen the movie The Raven?
I believe I have. It's been a while. Wait,
John Cusack?
Yes, I have.
As Poe.
Yeah.
It's great. The entire movie, though, I'm fighting with my brother whether the raccoon kills Poe. I'm not going to tell you people if it did.
I don't know. I'm a huge fan of what's his name? He played the inspector.
Luke Evans.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of him.
He's one of like many gay crushes I have.
So, but
what can I say? What's up, Luke? Love gay men. Gay men are the greatest.
He was good.
Can you tell I'm attempting to butter out my next gay best friend?
Yes.
Right here. Needs so many gay best friends.
John Cusack, though, he was
good in that.
Yeah, he was okay. I knew I couldn't wait till the movie come out because I really did want to see it.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna maybe pay movie theater prices for that.
Yeah.
I rented it, watched it with my brother, and the entire time he goes, "The raccoon kills Poe, right?" I'm like, I refuse to believe that it's the raccoon. Entire movie is just that. 10 minutes later, raccoon does it, I'm telling you. No, the raccoon doesn't do it. I'm looking it up on Wikipedia right now. The raccoon kills him. And I'm sitting there going, no. No, yeah.
How they how all his stories got incorporated into that movie. It
It
was
was
really
interesting.
good.
Yeah.
Now I want to
Anyhow.
watch Edgar Allan Poe stuff. I want to watch this thing on Netflix now.
Now that we've invited everybody into our lives for the last 30 minutes, because really this was a 15-minute conversation on the book that sucked,
Yeah.
and a 30-minute conversation on everything else. We're like, let us tell you about the good stuff in the world rather than this trash. Drivel.
We haven't got a book yet for next month, or we will announce it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get it to tomorrow. But it still was a nice show, even though we didn't talk about the
Yeah.
book a lot.
I feel like we probably talked about it more than I'm giving us credit for, but
Yeah. Yeah. And even though we compare it to other fantasy novels, it's to each his own. I mean,
if you are one of those people out there that loves this book, more power to you. This is probably one of the very few times you will tune into the show where you see both or all people involved in the show did not read it, did not finish it. We read it. We read some of it. Couldn't finish it, and we hated it. Like, that's just how much we hated it.
yeah,
And
I call it so yeah.
yeah.
And I never do that.
Oh yeah, we're both sitting at work, and I hear, Lauren, there's a phone call for you. Okay, do you have time to talk right now? Working on newspapers, but I've got 3 minutes. Great, I need them. Okay, go. like, that's just how bad it was. Like, I messaged her on Facebook night of, got 30 pages in. I'm like, I'm done. I'll see you at the end of the month, but I'm not doing this book. She's like, is it that bad? I'm like, I can't do it. I'm like, we've read this book before in better formats. She's like, and then Ericka goes, "Tell I'm gonna read it. It'll be fine. I'll finish it. We'll be able to discuss it." I get a call today. I hate this book so much. Okay. Like, I'm literally sitting in the middle of, like, I'm not even sitting. I'm standing at the reference desk on the phone. Okay. So bad. I know.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's just an awful book. I know. I couldn't finish it. I'm sorry. Like, I'm literally like, I wanted to say more, but part of it was I knew we had the show tonight, so I'm like, I can't just sit here and bash the book in the middle of the library.
Yeah, and where you are is like right in the open.
It's so open. It's so open. And I'm like, literally middle of the library. Like, it couldn't be any more middle.
Yeah.
And so I'm like trying to. I know. Yes. I read some of it too. How far did you get? 30 pages. And, oh, I made it further than you. Congrats. I hate it so much. I know. We'll talk more tonight. Okay. That's what she can say. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah, we will talk more tonight. I'm just like.
That's funny. Oh my goodness.
Like, I'm literally just standing there in front of the desk, and also where I'm at, my boss can, like, very clearly see our reference desk, and I'm just like, this is gonna be one of those. I'm like, I have 30 more minutes in my workday, and I'm totally. There's no way that there's not gonna be a patron that's like, what is this shitty book you're talking about? Or my boss going, what are you doing right now?
Because everybody can hear the whole conversation.
Well, I don't think they could hear because, like, they just heard my end, and I'm just like, just don't respond how you want to right now. Don't respond how you want to. You're right. That is a shitbag. Nope, that can't come out of your mouth. Cannot come out of your mouth right here, surrounded by adults with your back to the children's area. Because they'll all know it's you. Because where we are in reference, we've got the teen area to our right, and they all like to try to cuss, and then they get in trouble for it. Good parenting, let me just tell you. And then we have the children's area in front of us. And you really should not be cussing in their earshot.
Yeah. And then like you got the rest of everybody just like right in your peripherals.
Right there. Right there. And I'm like, I like my job. I agree with everything coming out of her mouth right now. I'm like,
This
I
will be
just
one of
can't.
those things where we just look back and we laugh on
Yeah.
in the year. Cause oh my gosh. It was yeah, it
There's
was
gonna
that
be.
bad. I had to call we had to have a work conversation.
Yeah, it was.
But hey, we pushed the show out to almost an hour.
Yeah, we did.
So
It was.
good.
Well, like Erica said, we have not picked a day or a book for June yet. That's going to get announced hopefully tomorrow, end of the week for sure.
Yep.
Um, hopefully. Um, really preferences for tomorrow, but it's going to depend on how crazy things are because we do have a staff meeting tomorrow morning. Can you just
Yeah.
feel how tired the room got upon that?
And programming. Our summer reading is doing now, so we're like
Crazy.
super busy, crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, have programs almost every day. Teens, children's, and adults.
Mm-hmm. Well, the way that main branch works, there is a program every day. Most days have one of each.
Yeah, mine's is majority. The majority of mine is on Thursday. Carlos's is Mondays and Tuesdays, and my branch manager just depends on the day because she doesn't have a late day, so it just depends on her. But for sure, we have programs on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yep. Well, I don't see any questions or comments in the comment box.
And there hasn't have not been any in the Facebook page.
So if that's it, we'll just go ahead and call it a night.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you guys for joining us today. Even though the book was really short lived and talked, we still had fun, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
fun. And we'll announce the book later on. And just hope y'all have a good night.
See you guys later.
Bye.